quick heads up with this video. Parts of it basically, I should say this, fucked up. Don't know why. It just messed up during recording. I don't know why. Hopefully I can salvage some of it. But essentially, this whole part is introducing Toa Korakami, I think is what it was called. It's essentially just basically introducing some new characters, like that Natsuya, the main character's best friend, the teacher, and essentially it's like going to the school. Essentially that's all this part really is. But I'm just mad that the recording fucked up. Enjoy it if you can. Hello down here. Welcome back to Iwaihime. And last episode it was pretty crazy. Let's get started with it.
ここがキコちゃんの住むアパートなんだ。
My father considered living alone to be a trial of sorts for me. For generations, men of the Susuhara family had lived independently after reaching a certain age. Only once one had trained his body and mind without relying on others was he considered a full-fledged adult. I had eagerly awaited this opportunity for as long as I could remember. That was why I studied up on all sorts of things in preparation for this day so I could live on my own. The thought of finally being able to put all of that to the test excited me beyond words.
はい、これ、スズムの部屋の鍵。2階の202号室ね。
ありがとう。僕だけの家か。なんだかワクワクするな。
Kiko's family, the Harumiyas of Kiko being Subikiko. Her full name was Subikiko Harumiya. Anyway, Kiko's family, the Harumiyas, were landlords who owned several apartment complexes in Suseda. This quaint two-story apartment complex, Residence Harumiyan. This Harumiyan II was one of them, and I will be living here. I opened the door to find a futon and stacks of cardboard boxes containing daily necessities waiting for me. The delivery men had already made their rounds.
それにしても、ずいぶんいろいろと送ったね。男子なんてせいぜい身の回りのものをカバンに詰め込んだらおしまいかと思ってたな。
Okay, that's a bit insulting there. Kiko nodded along, her eyes gleaming and her smile beaming. It seemed she'd been looking forward to living near a boy her age, what with being in the midst of adolescence and all.
ちなみに、隣の201は私の部屋ね。
Oh, she just lives next door.
壁薄いからね。聞き耳立てて乙女の秘密を聞こうとしたら血祭りにしちゃうからね。
Okay.
しないよ、そんなこと。
I mentioned it might be easier to unpack with a box cutter and scissors. It would. So Kiko left the room saying she'd go get them. With the bright and cheery Kiko gone, a somewhat chilly stillness filled the room. The place hadn't been renovated, so there were faint traces of the previous owner's existence still lingering about. Replacing that with my presence and making the place my own would be among the great pleasures of living alone. Oh yes, it would. But until then, I just had to put up with a bit of discomfort. Here we go. Just then, long black hair gently tickled my cheek. No, it was just some falling dust. I looked up at the ceiling and discovered it was pitch black, like someone had painted it with soot. It fell gently, like black snow. When I came to my senses, I found myself in a pitch-black cloud filled with that falling snow. I couldn't see a thing. However, I could sense many presences. Here we go. At that moment, I thought I could hear a female voice reading out something like a sutra at length. Her voice sounded youthful, but I couldn't see her anywhere. This is that's the menu screen. That is the menu screen. Instead, a giant turquoise object shaped like a spindle, heavy and covered in rust, came into view. It felt like the voice was coming from within it. Many people were sitting around the object. The lights of many candles flickered about, giving the affair of a ritualistic atmosphere. Candlelight danced in a cloud of black soot. Oh, the sound illuminating the massive conical mass. I could hear the woman reading no praying, singing inside it. I couldn't help but wonder what in the world the thing was. My eyes were gradually drawn into it. The woman's chants broke into coughs from time to time. Oh, my heart wrenched at that sound. I felt like I was going to choke in the cloud of soot as well. Before I knew it, that bizarre object loomed over me like a massive mountain. It swallowed and squashed my consciousness whole. Oh, we're now finally at the title. We're actually now at the title, okay. Susuda Prefectural High School, Class 2A, my class. Originally, the plan had been for me to transfer here a year ago, back when I was starting high school. My mother fell ill just before the entrance exam, so I had to stay and help around at home. As a result, I was delayed. She eventually returned from the hospital with a clean bill of health, so I finally started attending the school 1 year later. At first, I was worried a transfer student like me would attract all sorts of attention and have a hard time. But since there were so many students at this school, and I transferred in right at the start of the school year, no one noticed. Actually, to be expected, the freshmen had 8 different classes, so there was no way the students would know everyone in their grade. They all probably figured I had been in a different class last year, just some classmate they hadn't bumped into until now. So no one had any reason to think I was a transfer student unless I told them. That made things much easier for me. What's more, every day at the school wasn't just easy, it was actually pleasant. As for why, well, first of all, Kiko was in the same class. Okay, so we're playing as him now. Compared to mine, Kiko's handwriting was rather dull and simplistic. Her boredom with school was palpable from her notes alone.
進む、あんたのノートいくら出したら私のノートってことにしてくれる？
She wants to buy him.
ダメだよ。勉強は自分で書いて覚えなきゃ。
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, the ones are noticing. For some reason, girls had always liked me, not like I had a clue why. Okay, so he's gonna be like a harem kind of thing. Okay. But I had guy friends too.
さすがはスハラ。
Natsu.
相変わらずグレイトな男だぜ。
Natsu proudly displayed his notebook, filled to the brim with drawings. So he's still drawing, though it looked like he had more drawings than actual notes. This was Natsuya Atsuta, my best friend. He was a very unique and funny guy. I don't know why, but he'd taken a liking to me ever since we met at the opening ceremony. Oh, this opening ceremony, right?
ハルミヤも 俺に女子力で負けてるようじゃまだまだだな。
My father ran a martial arts dojo. As a result, he had trained me ever since I was little. Said training involved punching trees, dragging straw, and the like, so my hands were pretty roughed up. Well, I guess I might have made me stronger than the average person, too. On the first day of school, I'd accidentally made eye contact with Natsuya, and he challenged me to an arm wrestling match on the spot, which I won. Afterwards, he said that was the first time she'd lost, that I'd caught his eye, and so on. He'd been fond of me ever since. Suzumu couldn't be happier with his school life. He had integrated perfectly into the class, and each day was just as satisfying as the last. It wasn't just Suzumu either. Everyone in that class was happy. They were basking in the glory of their adolescent days. Suzumu's classmates all took their seats as they reluctantly ended their conversations. Everyone bowed as commanded to by the class representative, and the once lively classroom fell silent yet again. The silence was abruptly broken by the sound of the rear door opening, attracting the attention of the entire class. I have questions. Toei was a class where anyone could enjoy themselves. Everyone there felt that way. But there was one person they all avoided. That someone was her.
黒髪さん、着席なさいな。
Kurakami.
何？
Go. Miss Hinagata smiled as she responded, but it wasn't like they were carrying on a conversation. Indeed, it was more like she was a mother responding to an infant's babble. The girl's name was Toei Kurakami. The only way to describe her would be a wonder. She staggered to the seat in the back of the class next to the window like a ghost. As she did, the rest of the class averted their eyes or pretended they didn't notice her. None of them budged in the slightest until they heard her take her seat. It bears repeating, but the only way to describe her would be a wonder. She always carried a Japanese doll with her, and never let it go for even a second. There were whispers that it must be a cursed doll whose hair grew longer when you weren't paying attention. That said, there wasn't anything wondrous about it. It was just an eerie doll. Many wondered if she was even allowed to bring it to school. Yet, no one said a word about it. What's more, Toa never let go of the doll. Not even during classes. Yet no one said a word about it. Even though she never held a pencil or opened a textbook. Even at that very moment, she just kept on holding the doll as she stared off into space. But Miss Hinagata didn't even try to reprimand her. That went for the other teachers too. No matter what subject they were teaching, none of them told her to put her away. Far from it, they said nothing, even when she would suddenly rise to her feet and leave the classroom. She'd even done so that very day, staggering out of the classroom at the very beginning of social studies. Yet the social studies teacher hadn't reprimanded her, merely asked if she was going to the infirmary again. Her head was in the clouds regardless of the subject. There was no way the school could allow that. And yet, the whole school allowed Toei Kurakami. Her classmates would wonder if she was a ghost, or if the teachers couldn't see her. The very notion was ridiculous, of course, but no one laughed. For they understood she was an ominous presence they'd do best to not get involved with. Despite that, the classroom was getting used to her existence and strange habits. April was almost at its end, and the whole class had already mostly stopped paying her any mind. Forget passing, no one could even imagine her holding a pencil. Natsia's comment was on point. It confounded the mind to envision how she had been allowed to join the school in the first place.
Great money power で裏口ってわけかもな。
He's gonna be able to get me through this game, probably. But everyone thought so. No one believed she'd been accepted through the proper channels. The more one thought of her, the more of a mystery she became. Indeed, they were ignoring her even now. The teacher should have been able to see her from where she stood. And she continued with the lesson like nothing was wrong. That was very mysterious and, depending on one's mindset, eerie. He didn't exactly have much in common with her, so Suzumu hadn't really paid her any mind so far. Every school had its own troublemakers and quirky students. The types everyone ignores because it would be a pain to get involved with them. Toei was certainly occupying that role that had been his only evaluation of her. The more he thought now, the more conscious of her he became. Suzumu had never felt this way before. It was bizarre. Making sure the teacher wasn't watching, he looked back at Toa. She was staring blankly at the ceiling. She didn't so much as even glance at him. Yet for some reason, Suzumu's gaze was drawn to her. It wasn't exactly love at first sight, but deep down Suzumu felt an unrest that was similar yet completely removed from it. Was it anxiety or sense of responsibility?